Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. If you wouldn't mind, just take a second to check in using the QR code on screen. All right, so let's get into the presentation. So we will be referring a lot to our dedicated website, the Fine Arts Portfolio Review website. The URL, as you can see here, is www.fineartsreview.risd.edu. It's taking place on April 24th and 25th from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a great assortment of over 50 organizations, and we're anticipating a minimum of 150 students participating. So we're really excited. This is a great opportunity for students to get feedback, professional grade feedback on their portfolios, feedback on their presentation. It's just really going to help you network and to improve upon your professional practice. I should mention that Fine Arts Portfolio Review is offered to juniors, seniors, fifth-year undergrad students, and all graduate students. So any first-year students, undergrad or sophomores, will need to wait until the following year in order to participate. So for starters, the participating reviewers. We have an excellent lineup of participating reviewers, and you can get to this link by going to the Fine Arts Portfolio Review website and looking at the participating organizations pull down up here in the upper right. So it shows you all of the organizations that are participating, and this is kept up to date as new organizations come on board. We're really anticipating that at this point, we've probably got most of the organizations that we'll be working with. So this is a great reference for you to familiarize yourself doing research on each of these groups, considering what points of view these different types of organizations will have to offer you so that you get a well-rounded body of feedback in your presentation. It's great to know who you're interested in meeting with up front so that you can learn more about them. And there is a way to favorite them in artworks, and I'll be showing you that tonight. So let's dig into the different types of organizations that'll be present. We have cultural producers, which includes Tiffany Bradley from Colored Criticism. Colored Criticism projects focus on the voices of artists historically sidelined from cultural criticism. Naima Sandy. Sandy's curatorial practice features healing, history, migration, music, race, and ritual. We're talking about galleries like 1969 in New York City for solo and group exhibitions and art fairs. Fair and Contemporary. It's a Massachusetts-based ceramic and art and sculpture collaboration with Mass Mocha exhibition space. And LACE, or Los Angeles Contemporary Exhibitions. This is an exhibition space and emerging curators program in the Los Angeles area. Repeat visitors. A lot of these organizations come year after year. We're featuring art buyers such as Uprise Art, art collecting and advising service. And Fidelity Art Collection. We collect artwork that is experimental, intellectually curious, and technically precise across all media. We have Tessa Haas, a curator from the MIT List Visual Arts Center and Automat Collective. Natalia Levine from the Shiva Gallery. And there are artist residencies that will be participating, such as I-Beam from New York City, an art and technology fellowship residency program. And Sculpture Space, located in Utica, New York, international residency featuring wood and metal shop facilities. And other venues such as the Photographic Resource Center. This is a member-based calls for entry, networking connections, excellent organization. And Urban Glass, featuring fellowships, scholarships, employment, and open calls for work. Also, independent artists like Emily Weiner. Emily's an exhibiting artist, adjunct faculty, and works in writing and curation. And we have Eric Foreman, a founding member of BioArt New York, pairing artists and biologists. And museums. The Griffin Museum of Photography is a member-based exhibition highlighting still images, moving images, installation, and public works. And the Queens Museum. It's an art museum and educational center located in Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, New York City. So those are some of the great different types of organizations, just a selection that'll be participating in the event. Next, I'd like to get into the sign-up process. So this is the main way that you engage with this event. And it does involve using the artworks, and there is some technicality to it. So I'm going to jump into this. I would like to point out, however, that everything that I'm showing is available on our dedicated Fine Art Portfolio Review website. So definitely take advantage of that. So when we're talking about artworks, just want to start at ground zero. You used artworks to register for the event this evening, but let's just point out what is this 1220, the number 1, 2, and the word 20. So 1220 is the platform that hosts our artworks platform. And we chose this platform because it's so customizable to enable us to make art and design specific resources available to all of you. When we're talking about a schedule that's offered from a reviewer, each schedule, so for each evening, there's a potential for 7 time slots per schedule. So when we're talking about popular organizations, that could mean that if they're in high demand, these schedules will fill up quickly. However, we want to reassure you that the networking opportunities are not limited to just those that fall onto a schedule. Networking is accessible to all students that participate. If these reviewers were only limited to 7 people that they met through a schedule, it would not be nearly as enticing to them. The benefit for them is that they participate in this event, they meet with some students, but then they're also generating awareness for their organization, and it makes it more likely that you'll be reaching out to them for future engagement after the fact. And this is something that will go more into detail, but I just wanted to go over the quick origin of artworks, what it is, and what this whole review system is. So there are some terms that we should get out of the way, because when you get into artworks, you're going to see some things that might seem peculiar based on what we normally refer to in the art and design world. For one thing, on-campus interview. On-campus interview is a feature that we use of the 1220 platform that enables us to provide portfolio reviews. It's the vehicle for hosting something with a schedule. So if you imagine that these people are coming onto campus virtually, it starts to make quite a bit more sense. An interview time slot, that, of course, we would much rather not use the word interview, because these are not interviews. These are portfolio reviews. There's no job on the line. This is strictly for you to receive feedback on your work and to learn more about the organization. So when you see interview time slot in artworks, rest assured, we're talking about a portfolio review. There's also a feature involved when you're engaging with the system where you apply to an OCI up here. When you apply, you are not applying for a job. You're simply applying to get a chance at a time on their schedule. The other cool thing about this apply feature is that it actually is a great way to send your resume to the reviewer. So we will be taking CVs and resumes from all of you that you contribute through applying, and we'll be sending them in packets to all of the reviewers. This is also going to improve your chances of networking with them and connecting with them after the event, even if you don't get a meeting with them. So I talked to you about the participating reviewers list and trying to make sure that you're picking out some favorites. It just so happens that in Artworks, there's a favorite feature. So you'll see at the top of when you're looking at OCI and job listings here on the left, when you're in Artworks, and then up at the top, it says OCI. You can click on that to see the lists of OCIs for portfolio review. And we can see it's pretty clear, like all of the active folks have portfolio in their OCIs here, as we're seeing. And there's a series of filters along the top here. You can see like job status, employer, job title. Well, if you choose to add a filter over here, you can start typing in, because there's like a long list of filters here. You can start to search for a filter like favorite. So I typed in FAVO, favorite only popped up. I can select that. And I can select yes, so I'm only looking at favorites. And then I can click out of favorite. And anyone that I clicked this heart icon next to, I'll only be looking at those OCIs. So it just helps you to kind of like reduce this long list of OCIs down to your favorites. So of course, the first thing you need to do is click that heart icon next to OCIs of interest. But then this is the way that you can retrieve that list very quickly. All right, so let's look at what the sign up process looks like, because currently, if you go into Artworks and you try to do the sign up, it's not going to work because signups have not yet begun. So I'm going to show you what it looks like so that it's more familiar to you when the time comes. So let's get a few things out in the open here. Here's what you can do to get ready before the signups come up. So keep in mind that signups are first come, first serve, and that these review times may fill up quickly. So being on time for the sign-up process will behoove you. Creating a top list of organizations is a wise process, and I've already covered that sufficiently. Another technicality is that in your profile, you can load a resume or CV into your Artworks profile. This is necessary in order to register for a time slot. So doing this in advance will make sure that you're not trying to do this upload process when you really want to be signing up for times. So take care of that in advance. All right, so step one, you're going to log into Artworks. This is something that you could do in advance just to make sure that your login's working properly. This is the URL that you're probably well aware of. And using a laptop is really best for signups. It's not as good with a mobile device. It's just not as easy to control. So we do recommend a laptop. And signups are going to open up on Wednesday, April 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And do make sure that you've logged in before signups begin, just to make sure that everything's working properly. I will say, just so I don't forget, the Career Center will be on hand, available to you through email and through phone calls and Zoom. So if anything comes up, we'll be ready for you starting at 5:45 or even 5:30, just to make sure that you've got access to us if anything's wrong. And we'll be staying with this process through the sign-up process. So finding the organizations. I've already mentioned this, but I'll just review. Like, you're going to click on OCI and job listings on the left. So you're in Artworks and you're going to click on OCI and job listings on the left. That loads the OCI and job listings page. And then at the top, you'll click OCI. Now it's only focusing on OCIs, and this is just a demonstration. There will be many more OCIs lined up from 2023. We're looking at 2020 here, but this is just for demo purposes. And you'll be able to see the list of OCIs that are available. And just as a reminder, when we say on-campus interviews, we're really talking about portfolio reviews. So the next step, you're going to apply to the organization. Now, as I said, applying doesn't work right now. This feature is not ready yet, but on April 19th at 6, this feature will come online and you'll be able to apply. And so what this looks like is you'd select your OCI, and then in the upper right, you can see the apply button. You simply click that. You can see that it's asking for a resume, and this is required. So this is why I mentioned, like, better to load this thing in advance so that you don't have to be worrying about this when time is of the essence and you're trying to get onto a schedule. So you select the appropriate resume and hit apply, and then you get a response. That response should say, congratulations, you've successfully applied. And then it's going to lead us to the next step, which is selecting an interview time. And of course, an interview time really means portfolio reviews. So just making sure that that's super clear. So we pick up where we left off, we select a time. We can see the schedule, the scheduled times that are available. And if a time is not available, it says not available, but then if there is a time available, there's a blue button that you can recognize easily. So that apply button and the select time button are both blue. In the event that a schedule is empty, full. If a schedule is full, there won't be any blue buttons to be found. We wish that this was more intuitive, where it might say something like the schedule is full. But I just want to point out that if a organization is popular, times are gone, then you won't see any blue buttons. And so you should move on to find time on a different schedule. But provided there is a time available, you hit that select time button, and now we can see it's confirming, like, okay, this is the time and the date. You hit OK, and it tells you success. You've gotten the time. Trying to make it very clear. And even the OCI changes its appearance. Now you can see that you've applied and that you have an interview scheduled. So that's pretty clear. Now, remember that on the first night of signups, or actually I haven't said this yet, so you can't remember. I'll tell you now, signups are limited to 6 on the first night. If by chance you have gotten through 6 applications and there were a couple of schedules that you weren't able to get on and you still want to get more times, you do need to withdraw an application in order to earn back one of those applications. So if we're limited to 6 applications, you'll need to withdraw. And this, fortunately, is very easy. So you would click on an OCI that you've already applied to. See, it says applied. And let's say that you didn't get on to assign a schedule here. You can click this withdraw from application button. It asks if you're sure, you can withdraw it. And then when you do, you earn back one of the applications that you had previously spent. So now you've got another shot to look at a different organization and try to get on their schedule. Now, that was day 1 with that 6 application limit. The following day, Thursday, April 20th, starting at 12 noon, so middle of the day, we're going to remove that application limit. And this will allow people to apply to more organizations. So you would want to do that if you've got 6 times and you actually want more times on schedules, you could get more. It's also a great idea if you weren't getting onto schedules, but you want them to get your resume. So like that last company or organization that we withdrew from, we could go back to them and we could reapply so that we're sending them your resume or CV. This is the way that you share your CV, and the Career Center will be encouraging organizations to review all student CVs that are submitted to them, and we'll be asking them to welcome your outreach after the event. All signups will close the evening of Thursday, the 20th, at 11:45 p.m., just before midnight. And if you're looking for your review times, you can always go to the homepage and it will show you upcoming commitments that you have in the upcoming window pane. You should also receive email confirmations. So that will also be a great way to track your progress. So at this time, let's see. Are there any questions about the sign-up process before we move on into the other good stuff about like getting the most out of this event and your interactions with reviewers? If you don't ask now, it's totally fine. We will cover questions at the end, but I also don't want to move on and have anybody forget any questions that they had about signups. So I don't see any currently in the Q&A pane. So I will move on. Great. Okay, so moving on, how to prepare. So a great way to prepare for your experience with reviewers is to do the following. You want to consider what your career goals are for this coming year. Be prepared to verbalize the focus of your work and what you're passionate about. And by having this prepared, this will enable you to summarize efficiently. You know, when you have these meetings with the reviewers, it's limited to 20 minutes. That may seem like a long time, but it actually goes by pretty quick. So by thinking carefully about what your goals and your passions and focus are, thinking about that in advance will enable you to present it with conviction and get it right out there to start your meeting. And you can practice your pitch with your peers. You can even come into the Career Center for assistance, and would be glad to work with you on how you're conducting yourself through these meetings. The best condition for any meeting like this is to be able to be yourself. And I think one of the best ways to have your nerves under control, to be able to be yourself and talk about your work authentically, is to be prepared. And I think that this is covered pretty well here. Another great thing to have ready are some questions for reviewers. So you can include some simple questions about like asking the reviewer what they think your strongest pieces are, or how you can improve, what they look for in applicants for their calls for work, or what they look for in artists that they want to feature as curators. Do they have any advice for an emerging artist, especially for some of the artists that are participating as reviewers? That would be a great question. And if you're looking for work or internships, what kinds of jobs do you have available in order to support yourself as a professional artist? And lastly, it's always a great idea to ask for the best way to follow up with someone. This could be a key connection for you for your future, post-graduation, or even in the short term for the coming summer. So don't be afraid to ask for contact info and to ask how it would be best to reach out to them. So what's it like? We've been getting the hang of this virtual event thing ever since the pandemic. And so none of this should be super surprising, but some of the things that we've really appreciated about the remote option with the Fine Art Review in particular is that we've managed to get some organizations from far and wide to participate, because there isn't the whole overhead of having to travel and all the expenses and time that are associated with it. So we do appreciate that we're able to meet with some excellent organizations, and our system is flexible enough to allow them to use whatever platform they choose. But I'm also saying this as just a heads up to all of you that not everyone is going to be using Zoom. The way to access the link is very easy through our system. It may be a Google Meet, it might be Microsoft Teams. The link will be prepared for you to work properly. But just want you to be aware that you won't have to install any software or anything like that. It's just something that may come up. You may be meeting on a different platform than what you're accustomed to. So how to present yourself and what to wear. Consider the way that you want to express yourself. Consider showing that you care. This does not mean that it has to be a business formal presentation by you or standard attire. It's just dressing intentionally, as I like to say, like show that you mean it and that you care about your appearance and how you're presenting yourself. You know, as a brand, we all consider our work and the way that we present ourselves verbally, and it also has a visual component to it. That's good to keep in mind. Zoom etiquette, again, I feel like this is well understood, but it's always a smart idea to just make sure that technical issues don't get in your way. So making sure that your setup is working well with a fast internet connection, you've got a quiet place, removed of distractions and noises that could make it difficult for you, having good lighting prepared to avoid backlighting so that it's easy to communicate with you, and shut off all notifications and alarms to make sure that you're not distracted. And how do we present? So again, we've got 20 minutes to work with. A great way to start this conversation is to ask the reviewer how they would like to go through this 20 minutes with you. Some reviewers may have the chance to check out some work of yours, and they may have specific questions. Many reviewers, however, will be seeing your work for the first time. So definitely don't assume that they've already checked out your work. Be prepared to take them through your work. And if there are certain pieces that you feel are going to be more relevant to the organization that you're meeting with, it's a great idea to pre-plan that and make sure that you're ready to lead with those things so that you're really enhancing the presentation for the reviewer. If you've got motion-based work or video that has audio in the media, be sure to click that button when you share your screen to share computer audio. And as I had mentioned, looking for points of connection or similarity or relevance is always going to enhance your presentation with the reviewer. Now, following up, we make a point in here about the follow-up being not just for those who get a meeting with a reviewer, but also for those that don't. So this event is an amazing networking opportunity. We hear many times from students who don't get a scheduled time on portfolio reviews. However, they follow up after the fact, and they may get an even better engagement opportunity that isn't limited to 20 minutes. So we really mean it when we say that reaching out to these folks is a great idea, whether you meet with them or not. Sending a thank you note or an email or both is a great idea. Thank you notes could even be sent on a card. Maybe you have an image of your work and you could handwrite something to them. That's a dimensional barrier that you could break through, especially when, you know, it's very uncommon to be receiving physical media. So that could be a great way to be memorable. Connecting on social networks like LinkedIn and Instagram is also really important, really effective. And keeping in touch. And I know it says follow-up, but keep in touch is a bit different than that. Keep in touch means that you're writing to someone maybe twice a year, or maybe quarterly, 4 times a year. By keeping in touch with the folks that you're really interested in, it ensures that you're keeping them warm in a way. It's a way for you to be able to utilize these contacts that you've made through this event. Because if we go through this event and we have a great experience and then it's radio silence and we do nothing else, well, then these connections kind of wither on the vine in a way. You know, we have to nurture these connections in order to get the most that we can out of them. So reaching out to professionals who attended Fine Arts Portfolio Review is a great idea, and telling them your interest in what they do, offering to share your work with them, and using the past Fine Arts Portfolio Review participants and the Artworks Employer Directory as a means to track down some of these folks is a great idea. If we're talking about LinkedIn, a great way to reach out to someone is if you met with someone saying like, hi, it was great meeting with you at the portfolio review. Your advice and suggestions were helpful. I look forward to sharing new work with you in the future. Let's get connected on LinkedIn. Or if you didn't get the chance to meet with them, just let them know that you were hoping to meet with them. You know, this is always such an added benefit for reviewers. They get registered, they meet with students, and they're like, oh, that was great. And then they continue to get more engagement. That really gives them an additional benefit on their investment of time. And as you're looking, and let me step back for a second, as you're looking at someone that you're interested in, also keep in mind that you may have mutual connections that you could reach out to and ask for an introduction. So like this person was a mutual connection of mine who might be able to help me get in touch with Audra if I'm looking for that. And being able to look at their background and their profile also helps me to learn more about their career path, what they've been doing. It might introduce me to other venues or organizations that I hadn't even heard of. So this gives you even more benefit to like spending some time researching the contexts that are brought up through our event. And as we had mentioned, going to older listings of reviewers. So we could go to 2019, for instance. Many of these organizations come year after year, but even if there's a newcomer or someone that has long past participated with us, they still may be associated with the organization and may be worth reaching out to and looking up on LinkedIn. And then I'd mentioned the employer directory in Artworks. So if you click on employers over here, you can search by an organization such as Drive-By Projects. And then you could click on that profile to see what contacts are available under that organization. And if they're sharing their email, that's also available. Now, we've covered a lot of the things that you need to be concerned about, but as I have mentioned before, we have a lot of these common questions and answers available on the website. So do check out the student questions and answers under the For Students section of this website. We also have the sign-up screen recording available so that you can see what those sign-ups look like if you're trying to refresh your memory, because I know it's kind of hard to see this thing and then remember what you had seen, you know, over a week later. So that'll be a good resource for you. And lastly, we are here to support you. We'll be there during the signups. We'll be there during the portfolio review events as well. But we're also here during the day to help you get prepared. We've got drop-ins that are available. And at the moment, with the strike, we are offering Zoom drop-ins. You simply need to reach out to us at our email and also through our phone number, and we can direct you to whoever's on call for drop-ins. And our drop-ins are taking place Mondays and Fridays, 9 to 1. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, drop-ins happen 11 to 1. No appointment necessary. You can just show up or call and get patched through to us. And as I said, at the time, the Career Center is switched to remote through the remainder of this week, but then hopefully we'll be back in office starting next week.
But I do want to make a mention of just maybe one or two things that you covered, just reinforce some of the things you were saying for the benefit of everybody who's listening in. So with regard to resume or CV, actually there was one question from a student about Can you have two different documents in your artworks profile and choose which one you want to use when you apply to an OCI or you're submitting for an application? And the answer is yes. You can definitely have more than one document in your profile, and just name them so that you know which one is which, and you are remembering which one you want to use for what purpose. So with respect to resume or CV, the other thing that I would highly encourage you to consider doing is to include a URL to your work online. So whether that's your own website or a portfolio site, either way is fine. And the value of that is when the reviewers receive their packets of resumes in anticipation of meeting with you, some of them may have time to actually click on the link on your resume or your CV to get a preview of your work. There's no guarantee, like Jason was saying earlier, that will happen. And so when you meet with the reviewer that you are scheduled to talk with, the approach there is always best to simply say, after you greet them and thank them for their time, would you like me to share my screen and show my work? Or if you've seen my work already, maybe I can answer some questions about it. Please let me know how you'd like to proceed. So I would never assume that anybody's looked at your work ahead of time, but they may have. And having the link to your work on your materials that they're getting is obviously a very good way to make that connection. So I really want to just remind you all to think about that. And the second thing is, Jason mentioned really understanding who you're going to be meeting with and what the interest is of the reviewer. And I just wanted to reinforce that point to say, it really makes sense for you to come to that conversation for portfolio review having a little bit of knowledge of what that person's expertise might be or what their interest area is, so that you can relate the reason why you're interested in talking with them at the review based on who they are and what they do. And you may have very specific questions regarding your work and the things that they have the expertise in. The other point I wanted to make here too with the reviewer conversation is that Jason indicated there's some independent artists who have been successful with their practice, and we are happy to have them involved in the portfolio review because naturally they can share a point of view about what were their initial steps after graduation and how they got it, essentially can give point of view on how they got started. So your questions, of course, it's a portfolio review, so it's about your work, but it's perfectly all right to ask questions like, do you have any suggestions for me as an emerging artist and how to get started? What was, where did you find your success first? What did you do? So the review can also be about those kinds of questions, not strictly about the work, and in particular, based on the expertise of the individual you're meeting with. So I hope all that makes sense. But I'm making these suggestions really to help you maximize the time that you'll have meeting with people and chatting with them. Our goal, the Career Center's goal, is always to provide students with exposure and opportunity so that you can learn from the experiences that you'll have and apply them to your own practice, your own professional path, wherever that may be leading you. So I think there is a question, Jason, in the chat from Michael, so I'll just read that out loud. Is there a place to include a website that we use as a portfolio, or would it be best to make our portfolio elsewhere? So I'm wondering, I guess, I have two thoughts on this. So maybe I'll take a stab, Jason, and then you can. So is there a place to include a website that we use as a portfolio? So I think what Michael, you're getting at is, do you have to make your own website? And you do not. You can use a portfolio hosting site like Behance, for example. And there are others that, you might, Adobe Behance is the website that I'm thinking of. Jason, you may have other ideas. There really isn't a necessity at this point for this event for you to have your own portfolio website that you've built yourself, if again I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Michael talk.
Mm,
So you can unmute if you like, Michael. I think you might be
thanks.
saying where to list your website URL. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a website that's already fleshed out. I was just curious because like my website obviously includes like it has like extra stuff like a contact page, it has an about page that
Yeah.
includes like a shortened version of my artist statement. It
Mhm,
has like a broader range of my work. Do you
mhm.
think that like more helpful for the reviewers, or is it more helpful to like create more specialized portfolios that are like more geared towards them, or is there a way to like I know that you obviously said that they're not going to like look at a lot of the material before. They may, but they may not. So obviously,
Mhm,
I would guide them and be like, you probably like most likely my best work for this would be under this tab if you're curious, but the
mhm,
rest is there. I'm just curious
mhm,
with some on like where to include it and like how you would game plan for like a broad range of different reviewers.
mhm,
One trick that I've seen that works well, Michael, if this applies, is if you have a certain page that features the work that you think is most important to the reviewer, rather than just putting in your simple URL, you could put in like a full link to that exact page. And
mhm,
then the reviewer would still have the benefit of seeing all the other things that you have on your website, which if they've got the time, that would be really cool. But you're still, it's like the best of both worlds. You're giving control, you're in control and sharing just the work that you want, but there's still access to other work, if that makes sense.
mhm.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll read the next question, Susan.
Yep.
So Alina, how many pieces should we include in our portfolio? And Alina, if you'd like to elaborate, I'm also gonna click on allow to talk. Wait, did it work?
Mhm.
Here we go. Ah, yeah, so
Hello.
would you like to take that, Susan?
Sure. So how many pieces is the question?
Yeah.
And I think of it in a couple of different ways. So back to Jason's point about like the work being particular to the people you're meeting with. I think depending on the type of work you make and the reviewers that you'd like to meet with, that in some ways might already dictate what of your portfolio in particular you want to share or show. So in a 20-minute period, that's not a great deal of time. And I would say that generally speaking, maybe somewhere between 8 and 10 images or projects. And depending on which of those projects you think, again, the reviewer might be most interested in, or that you want the feedback on, first and foremost, is where I would begin in starting to show the work. So again, it's a kind of a question of what your interests are in getting feedback and how much time you want to spend on any one of those pieces or several of them. And just know that you'll start the conversation and you may discover that you won't get to all 10, but you have, a good number to work with. And you also don't know the pace of the reviewer and quite how they're going to respond to everything. So I think 10 is a good number just in general for that reason.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I can take the next one if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So is our resume supposed to include our portfolio along with the usual requirements like work experience, etc.? So I would like to just make sure of one thing. Like sometimes I see artists that will, by including their portfolio, they actually like include multiple pages featuring their work as part of their resume. And that is definitely not a good idea. So resume or CV should be a standalone document. If you have an online, if you have online access to your portfolio, it's definitely a good idea to put the link on your CV or on your resume up in the header area near your name. So many people will have like name and email, and having your portfolio link would be fantastic. Or if it's like motion-based work, it could be a link to your reel on YouTube or Vimeo. So I hope that that answers your question, but please like chime in if we're missing the boat here. Cool. Yep. All right. We got a thanks. You are welcome. So we're still here if you have any questions. For what it's worth, we will be switching to in-person next year. That is the master plan. And you're hearing it first. So I'm glad that you're all here for this. And we're also really glad to be taking advantage of some of the flexibility that we have with the remote orientation of the event and all the excellent organizations that are participating. Yeah, so the date for signups is on Wednesday, April 19th. And that info is available on our dedicated website. Oh, this is going to take me too long. Sorry. Yeah, it's on the website, and we've got a whole section on signups. So, so we would encourage you to check that out. So Wednesday, April 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And we have a limit of 6 applications or 6 portfolio reviews. And then the following day at noon, midday, we remove that 6 portfolio review limit or 6 application limit. And we'll be glad to have you participate. And then it does wrap up end of the day on Thursday, the 20th. So almost at midnight, no more signups, no more changes. So you want to have everything done within that window, which is plenty of time. Don't be concerned.
Yeah. One thing that probably is important to mention too, when you're signing up, you know, it's a quick process and you're just like aiming to get onto a schedule. If for some reason you wind up accidentally double booking yourself, like you've gotten your 6 signups done and you then see, oh my gosh, I have 2 meetings at 7 p.m. on the same day with different reviewers. You can withdraw, of course, your application to one of those reviewers. And because Jason mentioned, our staff are available throughout the sign-up process and a little bit before it and during. If we're observing that a student has double booked and they haven't withdrawn one of their applications within an hour's time, then we will take the second application away just to make room for another student to have a spot and make that spot available. So please know that that's part of the process, and it's never really been a problem of any kind. I just wanted to point it out in case it should happen to you and you're like, oh, what do I do? and suddenly realize or see that, oh, I have this conflict, but somehow it's resolved. That means our staff have been observing that and taking care of it in the background.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Yes.
All right, so don't forget, we're here to support you. During the day, during normal hours, we're available for drop-ins, and also will be available during the signups and during the main events. And we're so glad that you could be here to take advantage of everything that you can get out of this excellent opportunity to network with professionals out in the fine art world.
Yeah, thank you all for being here, and good luck next week when you're signing up. Chat with us, as Jay Smith said, if you have questions. We want you to enjoy this experience and to have a great outcome with good feedback and good connections made for the event itself, but extended beyond that too, of course. So thank you again for being here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in person at some point in the coming days.